Hello and welcome to this YouTube channel. My name's Chris Philpott and my channel's called Climate Emergency and Spiritual Values. And this is program 4 in a series. Today in program 4 we're looking at the deeper causes of climate change through behaviour, and we're looking at karma. It's a word you're probably familiar with in popular culture. John Lennon wrote a song called Instant Karma. And what does it mean? Well, it's basically cause and effect. Everything in the universe has a reaction. There's that story that a butterfly in Brazil flapping the wings could cause a hurricane somewhere else in the world. So everything is connected in that sense. Now, we're looking at climate change. And that is really a collective karma. We all have an individual karma, but collectively, climate change is the result of everybody's karma coming together to cause a big effect. Now, the oil companies knew 30 years ago, Exxon executive mentioned it, that there was a problem with fossil fuels producing carbon dioxide and warming the planet. Bill McKibben in his book Falter really shows that story, where vested interests, like for instance in the States, the Koch brothers, very much billionaires in fossil fuels, had a whole industry of climate denial, based of course on science. And we've had that with Trump when he goes to California. Now he's not in power, but when he went to California he said, oh, these fires, nothing to do with climate change, it's forest management in California. So the misinformation is rather like the tobacco lobby that said there was nothing wrong with smoking for all those years. Now, karma in the spiritual traditions is very important. In the previous program, program 3, we looked at Christianity. Now, Christianity has a lot of things to say about karma, cause and effect. This is from the Bible. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. St. Paul. And later on in the Bible, as ye sow, so shall ye reap. So, cause and effect. Islam, we mentioned in program 3, they also have a lot to say about karma in their scriptures. In Islam, Muslims at the end are judged on the final day of judgment, when God will see who will go to heaven and who will go to earth, and who will go to hell. So Muslims are aware that God is present there. And in their scriptures it said, and truly the Lord will repay everyone according to their works, for he is well aware of what they do. And in Islam, God is called Allah. So do good as Allah has been good to you. Do not seek to cause corruption of the earth, for Allah does not love corruptors. And we're corrupting the earth by causing climate change through greenhouse gas emissions. We go on to Judaism. Judaism and Islam and Christianity are known as the religions of the book, the people of the book. And Judaism, we haven't talked much about before, but it's based on the time before Jesus. And what it was in agricultural communities in Israel. So there's a lot of the teachings connected with the earth. It's in the Old Testament, you'll find it, about Judaism. And what the Jews say, there's a covenant, an agreement with God. But in order to keep that agreement, it entails following strict rules in all areas of your life, such as diet, clothing, not working on the Sabbath day. Have a special day, Sabbath day, on a Saturday, and Jews are not meant to work. So as long as you follow the instructions of God and take his guidance, you're going to get closer to God. So what did they say? They say, well, when one loves righteousness and justice, the earth is full of loving kindness of the eternal. Also, there is no dark place, no deep shadow where evildoers can hide. So really, brought up in ancient agriculture communities, they knew about reaping and sowing. They know about the causes of cause and effect and karma. In Buddhism, which we talked about in previous program 3, the Buddha was before Christ, and he taught about the need of awareness of what we do. Karma, according to the Buddha, is a way that we make progress or lack of progress on the spiritual path to what the Buddha called enlightenment. So in Buddhism, the Buddha actually talked about his previous lives because they believe in rebirth. So you work through your karma in your lifetime so that you don't actually not held back from achieving enlightenment. The Dalai Lama talked about planetary karma, and this is what he said. The universe we inhabit and our shared perception of it are the results of a common karma. Likewise, the places that we will experience in the future rebirths will be the outcome of the karma that we share with other beings living there. The actions of each of us, human, non-human, have contributed to the world in which we live. We have a common responsibility for our world and are connected with everything in it. Next we come on to Hinduism, which we mentioned in previous program 3. Hinduism coming from India, and the Buddha was enlightened in northern India, so he may have been influenced by Hindu philosophy, which is very similar. In Hinduism, the soul goes through successive lives of incarnation, dependent on previous karma. It's a cycle of rebirth. You may come back as a human if you've done well, but you may come back as an animal or even an insect. So the transmigration of souls, rebirth, you come in the cycle, if you like, where you left off, at the appropriate place to work out the karma that you've left behind. And Buddhism thinks the same. So they're very similar in that sense. In Hinduism, it's not enlightenment they talk about, it's moksha, God realization. The realization of closeness to God. Yoga is yoke, union with God, a practice in Hinduism. So let's have a look at some of these quotes. And I'm going to use the first quote from a woman who is absolutely a Hindu saint today, which I mentioned before, called Amma. Now, I mentioned before I met her in 1988, and she was giving darshan, or giving a teaching, and she hugs people. She's hugged thousands of people as a way of expressing love. I've seen her again since then, and when she rubbed me, my back, oh, you could feel electricity go up your spine. Now, she is very interesting because she understands about climate change, because her ashram in South India has recycling, organic growing of food, nothing's wasted. But she has a whole team of people around the world, actually, that plant trees everywhere. And there's green groups in this country and everywhere. In fact, when there's bad karma for people, there's a hurricane or something, natural disaster, Amma sends whole team into that place, doctors, rescuers, whatever, that volunteer and help. They did that in Haiti. One of the nicest stories is they helped with the Fukushima disaster in Japan, and all the students over there came and helped her in India build toilets because they needed to stop sewage pollution of the Ganges. So she said, by harming nature, he is paving the way for his own destruction. So nature is sacred. But in Hinduism, in the scriptures, it said, there's nothing mightier than the world of karma. Karma tramples down all powers as an elephant tramples down the lotuses. Again, a simple imagery. It says in the scriptures, the world is like a river and our acts are like ripples. So, basically, we come on to another religion, which you mentioned in program 3, Sikhism. They also believe in karma. And of course, Sikhism came out of northern India in the Punjab, so it might have been influenced by Hinduism. But it was founded by Guru Nanak, and there were 10 gurus altogether. And Guru Nanak and all the gurus lived very simple lives, but if you read their holy book, the Guru Granth Sahib, it is full of wonder of nature. It sees God in nature. And now 30 million Sikhs around the world, and it's the 5th largest religion. So, in order to make progress, to get closer to God, we have to have good karma. If we don't do good deeds, we will then fall back. Let me show an example of good karma, helping people. I visited a place near Amritsar called Pungalwara, and that was started by Sikh saint Bhagat Puran Singh, initially to help people who were on the border, who had been injured in the division of Pakistan and India, where there's a lot of violence. But Bhagat Puran Singh saw a disabled person on the street, and he picked them up and he carried that person for the rest of his life. And then he realized there were abandoned children on the streets in Amritsar. There were disabled people, there were people old and turfed out of their houses, there were people with mental health problems. And I went to this place, which is supported by Sikhs giving money. And there were 700 people there with one doctor, a saintly woman called Dr. Indrajit Kaur. She looked after all these patients, and I met a person there who was helping, and he was ex-RAF officer in the Indian Air Force. Now, to get to be in the Indian military is absolutely rare, and he wouldn't even give me his name. He just said, I'm here to serve these people. So that's be an example in Sikhism of good works. So let's have a look at some of the quotes. According to one's own actions and deeds, they will get near to God or they get far away from him. That's the Guru Granth Sahib. As are one's deeds, so one will become. And finally, in Guru Granth Sahib, the soul knows that as one sows, so will one reap. Again, the Guru Granth Sahib is the sort of guru in Sikhism. It's a compilation of writings of 10 gurus. A very holy book indeed, which we mentioned in the previous program. What a wonderful country India is. Having travelled around it for my previous book in 2002, it's amazing that in North India so many religions came about, and Jainism came about in northern India. Mahavira, the founder, was around at the same time as the Buddha. In program 3, we talked about the ideal person in Jainism, and that's the monks and the nuns. They are followed by the congregation, people who come to the Jain temples and revered. Now, Jainism has a complex cosmology, if you like. It sees the universe as eternal, unending, infinity. Nothing's created, nothing destroyed. It goes on forever, which is hard for our minds to grasp. But there are realms. There's the heavens, the earthly realms, and the hells. So 3 realms. And karma, cause and effect, determines where you are in those realms. If you create good karma, you make progress towards what they call is liberation. And when liberation occurs, they describe it as infinite knowledge, infinite perception, infinite power, and infinite bliss. It's called moksha, the same as in Hinduism. Realization. And you enter the higher spiritual realms. But if you do bad deeds, bad karma, you'll end up in the hell realms. But you'll again keep on coming back until you get it right. It's more mechanical in its sense that it is eternal, it carries on, and people eventually might end up in the higher spiritual realms. But karma is seen differently in Jainism because it says the whole of the universe is permeated with ultra-fine particles, and that's the karma, and it attaches to everything. If a person doesn't follow good karma, it attaches to the soul of that person and obscures their perception and gets in the way of their progress towards moksha and liberation. Jainism, I can tell you, having seen Jains in India, is a very aesthetic religion. It's quite strict, hard to follow. So the antidote to bad karma is these practices of fasting, only certain foods you can eat, lots of praying and chanting, restriction most of all of material objects. So it's a very strict lifestyle. So we talked about one of the leaders I met in Ahmedabad. He was the ideal. The Acharya, as the leader, will enter those spiritual realms when they die, perhaps. So let's have a look at some of the quotes from their scriptures. Mahavira, the founder, said, all unenlightened persons produce sufferings. Having become deluded, they produce and reproduce sufferings in this endless world. So you become deluded, the karma obscures your perception, and you become deluded and keep on repeating the same mistakes. Also in Jain scripture, it says a person of right worldview reflects on karma and its results. So in Jainism, it's very seen as very important, even to the point of an example. A Jainacharya can't go by car because he'll pollute the atmosphere. He's not allowed a car. So when a Acharya goes from one Jain temple to another, they perhaps go in a wheelbarrow, or maybe if they're not so well, be pushed in a wheelchair. But all monks just travel physically, and they only have what they can carry. If they can only have 2 books, that's all they can carry. They're not allowed more than that. In program 3, we talked about Taoism. Now, for the Western mind, Taoism is quite mystical, quite hard to grasp, but it's very ancient. It's 8,000 years old. And Lao Tzu, who we've mentioned before, was the holy sage, the man who founded it. So what is the Tao? Well, it's a path of living in harmony with the eternal, essential principles underlying existence, the ultimate reality. Finding harmony with that. So, the Tao is the path to live in harmony and be at one with the universe. In Taoism, there's heaven realms, and there's, which represents the spirit or the essence, and there's the earth realms that represent substance. Mankind is a synthesis between heaven and earth. Interestingly, the sage says there's no need to talk about punishment for people who do bad deeds. Because if you're not in alignment with the Tao, the way, you're going to be punished anyway. And if you create good karma, you will make progress towards the spiritual realms. But if you don't, you might suffer in the 10 realms of hell there are in Taoism. So, let's see what Taoism says about karma. Well, Lao Tzu says, natural laws of the universe are inviolable. And what you say or what you do determines what happens in your life. You are the master of your life and death. What you do is what you are. Lao Tzu. Chung Tzu was another master, another sage. There were quite a few, as well as Lao Tzu. And he said, when deeds and words are in accord, the whole world is transformed. So in Taoism, we can talk about a way of being, if you like, that brings you nearer the Tao or further away. So we can see karma permeates all these religions and spiritual traditions. It is a common theme. But what mankind has done is walk away from these teachings thinking there's no consequence for what we do. We saw in program 2 the causes of climate change. Well, the industrialization, consumerism. We think, for instance, something we buy in plastic, we throw away, it's gone. Now we find there's microplastics. You can find them in the Himalayas and the North Pole, and they're starting to get into fish. And we're eating our own plastic because we don't see the consequences of our actions. We're not wise enough to act in a way on this planet to stop the consequences of climate change. We get in the car, we drive when we could go on a bike. We make all these choices. But unfortunately, in a consumerist culture, you're there to consume and make profits for the big corporations. But you're not there to consume and think about what you're consuming and the consequences of that consumption. So all these traditions are pointing to the fact that we need to be more aware of our actions and the effects on everybody, all living beings, and particularly what we do, how we travel, how we eat, what we consume, how that affects climate change. Because the climate emergency has been caused by human behaviour, a lack of awareness of the consequences of our actions. Thank you.